thanks for joining me on this tutorial. Today I'm going to go over creating a title page that will go over a video to introduce someone's name. The way that I'm going to use that today is I'm going to have my video in Sony Vegas. You can use any version of Sony Vegas, and then I'm also going to be using Photoshop. I have this version of Photoshop, but you could use any version that you would want in Photoshop. You just may have to adjust the size instead of just having a drop-down template. First, what I do is I go to a frame where my video is going to be at. I'm going to drop down and I'm just going to go to full, best full. I'm going to undock my window and I'm just going to stretch it out. Not that this really matters in this scenario. So you just go to this icon here, little floppy disk, meaning save, and then you can just find your file location. Name it, and then you can just dock your window back. This is Vegas 13, and now it's a little bit different, and so it gives you all these prompts, but you can just hold down Control, and it will redock your preview window. Okay, so I have that image created. Now I'm going to go into Photoshop. I'm going to find my still images. I pulled two different ones so that I can see, are they about the same orientation, and they are. A good rule of thumb when you do anything in Photoshop is take your background copy and just duplicate that. And then I just mute out my locked layer, and then I will work with this background copy, and then I can make adjustments to it, and if I didn't like it, I could go back. But in this scenario, a little bit different. So what I can do is create a new layer. And this is where I am going to create a box that will go over the video first. The way that I personally do that is I just use this rectangle marquee tool. It opens up this little icon. And then this, I drag it to make it the size that I would want. And, you know, figure some of this will be cut off by your television screen because there's safe title areas that you want to stay within that. So, you know, stay within a couple inches on each side of your video. And now with HD, it makes it easier. And then you'll know that your name is not going to go off the screen. If it's too long, of course, it's just simple to figure out that you would do 2 lines. Here is the box. Now you can see that it is selected. You right click within that and then you can do these different things. The thing I want to do is go to fill, and I'm going to actually fill my box with a color. Here's some other things that you can do, but I'm just going to go to straight color, and then I'm going to choose a red color because this school here, you can see their logo is fairly red. If you wanted to eyedropper it, you could and just drop straight down. The color is now filled in there, and it's just this square box. And it is its own layer you can see over here. So you can turn it off and on. Now if you wanted to, you can do the same thing. Duplicate that layer, and then you have a copy of it. And then I'm going to mute it and work with just the copy layers. Make sure you're selected on your copy layer, and now you can come back over to this area, and I am going to right click. I'm still selected, as you can see that dotted line, and I'm going to say select inverse. Now select inverse, selected everything else. I'm going to right click within that area, and now I'm going to say feather because I want to create like some edging around the end of this text box here. Feather radius, you can just really play around with it. Let's try 50 and see how that worked. And now what I'm going to do is I'm still haven't deselected, or you just go into clear. So you can see immediately how that cleared it up. And my grids, I apologize. I should really clear up all these extras here. Okay. I just have that defaulted because I like to work in a grid. Anyhow, so you can see how that had worked, but we now have a little gradient on our text box. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my rectangle box again. I'm going to go within the center of the box that I created, and I am going to feather the edges. I'm going to say okay, and then I'm going to select inverse. I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to start clearing this off. And then you can see how it keeps changing. And if you were to clear it again, it just drops it down a little bit farther. So I'm actually going to go with that. I'm just going to go with something really faint right now just to show you, you know, what you can do. You know, you can play around with whatever you want. You can double it up. Put another layer behind that red one, and then it can, you know, you can just get really creative with it. This is just, you know, an outline of what you can do with your own creativity. So as you see, my text box, I outlined it. I created a new layer here, layer number 2. In here, you would just say, this is Nancy Ronald. My text has been defaulted to the same color, so you want to highlight over your text. Click on your color panel. That brings up, you know, your palette, color palette. You can drag, you know, just find your color, whatever you want. And you can see it's in real time now that it's highlighted down there, so you can see, oh, this color works good, or... And along with that, then you can also change the text and the font. You can put in your own font size. Play around with your font text. You just got to see, you know, what do you like and what looks good to you. You can always click up here and just scroll through. And then once that you have that done, you'll click OK, and then you will change your tool to the Move tool, and then you can freeform this. If you're not able to do that, then you're not clicked on the proper layer over here, and then you need to make sure that you are clicked on this proper layer. Okay, so I actually like that, but I am going to show you how easy it is to just create a little more contrast so you can't see through the red so easily, and it'll make the name more defined. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to go to the rectangle box like we've already done. Okay, I've highlighted it. I'm going to right click in it. I'm going to go to fill. I have this pattern here picked out. And now what you can do is go over to the fill, and you can just like really drop that down pretty low. Opacity, you can take that down too, so it will just be a little ridge underneath it. Over here at the bottom is where you'll find some different effects. And then this is an area where you can apply them to each different layer, and then you can go back individually without the history. So history is limited when you have an effect. But over here, when you add an effect this way, it's not limited, and you can go back in at any time just by double clicking and getting into this effect and then changing it. So if I decided I didn't like the way that this looked, you definitely go back and change anything that I wanted to do. So I'm just going to actually play around with a couple of these things, because this color overlay, I was thinking it would be kind of fun to have the color that I was really looking for to kind of pop through the pattern. So then this window down here, and you can see it's maintaining the pattern within the blue. I have this inner shadow. I'm going to take that off. I have the bevel and emboss on, and you can see inner bevel, outer bevel is what I'm going to do. You can change your depth and the size and see how it's like edging out sides, and then you can soften it up a little bit, which I'm going to do. I'm just going to play around with all that. When I look at it, I feel, hey, I wish, you know, I could change my layers, and you can do that very easy. So here's my layer that I just created. I can drag that down to behind the red, behind the name. Now I can go back onto Nancy's name, change my move tool, and then just, you know, center it a little bit more. I can use my arrows on my keyboard. And I feel like maybe I'm going to take the text up just a little bit. Change my tool back to the move tool, and now here I have it. I have these 3 layers that I like. Okay, so once you have that, you're going to fade this out. I can see Nancy. I have my 3 layers. I muted out my background. I'm going to remember which layers they are, and I'm actually going to save this copy. So I'm going to save as master layers. I'm going to mute out my name. I'm going to take these 2 together because I want them together. You could save them out individually, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to move this one though. Adjustments. I'm going to save that so that version is saved. I'm going to go back up. I'm going to mute Nancy's name. I'm going to save as. I'm going to call this bar master bars, actually, and save it. The reason why I'm saving it as a Photoshop document is because you want it to become transparent. So if you play around with different layers and different ways to save transparencies, and you can make like a vector, great, go for it. PNG, it might work. I just find that Photoshop and Vegas work really nice together, so I just keep it that way. Photoshop document, here we go. So saved that. Now I will mute these 2 and just have the name up. Save as Nancy. And if you have, you know, different names, you would just go in, change it. Right now, I would just go through every single one of my names, you know, 60 different people, type in each name, go up here, you know, say okay, go to file, say, you don't want to say save, you want to say save as, and then go in, you know, this is John, this is Luke, this is Peter, you know, and then proceed on to this next step. So here we are back in Vegas. You're going to want to insert a couple video tracks because one will be the bar and one will be the name. The best thing to do is to create all these different bins so you don't have it all in here and have to fish through it every single time. Music, images, titles. Grab all of your Photoshop documents and titles that you've just made. I've created my 2 tracks. Once you have that, you just drop down the bars. And then you would just drop down her name on the top layer. And I think it looks good. And then when you put your fades, just make sure your fades are the same. Otherwise, one will fade out before the other, and it doesn't really matter. So for me, this is all I would want. Let's say I see it here and I feel like it's a little bit off center. All you have to do is just go into your pan and crop tool. I've created other tutorials on pan and crop, so if you want to know some advanced font functions and features of it, here's the link. Now the thing with the title is you want to make sure that you're at the very edge, the very beginning of it. Otherwise, it will make a movement. This is keyframing, so it's going to tell you where it wants to be. So here I am using my arrow key so that it's just very small movements. Oops. And then, you know, you just really go left and right and figure out where you want the center to be, and I think that's good enough for me. Same thing with the bars. If you wanted to move, you know, them up or down, you could do the same thing. If you want to move them up and down together, then you would just, you know, move one and then move the other. But really, this is it. So after that, there you have it. Nancy Reynolds, text page, title screen, header, graphics, whatever you want to call it. This is how you do it. This is how I do it, at least. I hope it helps, and thanks for watching.